Hi, it's McConochie here from Conscious Man Attraction. If you're a spiritual woman, you've probably had some frustrating experiences with trying to date the right guy. Well, I know about that because I've been there too. And you know what our problem is, or at least one of our biggest problems? It's we're spiritual, you and I. I mean, that's not a bad thing, but it does make dating especially hard because if you look around on the internet for dating advice and tips for how to make a guy interested in you, most of that advice doesn't take into account that we're spiritual and we want a spiritual partner. So you get a lot of advice that's based on a more traditional approach towards dating, which mostly isn't bad, but when dating a spiritual man, a traditional approach often or usually doesn't work very well. And because we conscious men aren't traditional, you see, a genuine spiritual man has very different priorities and needs than your average guy. This is so important to remember when you're dating a conscious man. So in this video here, I'm going to share with you a few things that a genuine spiritual man absolutely loves when going on a date with a quality woman like yourself. Number one, we conscious men really love a woman who is in the present moment with us. In general, as a person becomes more spiritually awakened, he or she appreciates more and more being in the here and now. So if you can be fully present with him and not get disconnected from his company by doing things, like checking your mobile phone all the time, checking Facebook, or talking all the time about the past, you'll make him feel really comfortable if you can be in the present, and he'll be really into you. Number two, be spontaneous and humorous. It's another typical trait of spiritual men that they like to be spontaneous. So just try to relax and go with the flow on the date. Don't be too serious. Don't be afraid to get a little goofy, if that's your style. And number three, go into the date with a positive and cheerful attitude. If he's a genuine spiritual guy, his whole vibration will be generally cheerful. And if you're not matching that energy, and instead you're in a sort of a complaining mood, or bitching about things, or putting others down, he'll feel some friction and discomfort there. And I mean, it's okay to share problems and talk about things from the day and let off a bit of steam, but just don't let that be your dominant energy for the date. Number four, show genuine interest in him. Ask about him. Be curious to find out what sort of person he is. Sadly, I think a lot of women tend to talk too much on a date. I mean, I know that sounds like a cliche, but it's just such a common experience for quality men who are dating. And without giving that guy much of a chance to say something, share his ideas. Well, I know this can often be because you're nervous, and when we're nervous, we just talk and talk. So if you think you have this tendency, you want to remember to relax and just breathe, and don't be in a rush to fill those awkward silences in conversation. Instead of jumping in, to say something, just take a couple of breaths. And what you're doing with this is giving him space to talk. A lot of spiritual men don't often get the chance to share their thoughts with a like-minded woman. So if you give him that space to speak, you'll make him feel good. Number five, bring up spirituality in the conversation. And by spirituality, I mean, in the broadest sense, anything related to personal growth, really. We all have different ideas when it comes to spirituality. So be curious to find out what his ideas are. If he's a genuine conscious man, he'll love that you share an interest in that. Number six, we conscious men really love a woman who is not only spiritual, but is also sensual. So by getting a little physical with him, you'll really get him interested in you. And if you like him, if you think it's appropriate, get a little flirty, make some contact with your hand or your leg or anything like that. It can be as simple as just walking close to him so that your arm occasionally brushes against his, things like that. You don't need to go over the top with this. Just enough physical touch to transmit some of your sensual energy. I can tell you as a spiritual man, that's a real turn on coming from a quality conscious woman like yourself. Number 7, just be natural and authentic. I know this idea has become a bit of a cliche and it gets thrown about on the internet a lot, and it can seem a bit vague, right? Well, I'm talking about not trying to be someone you're not because of what you think he may like. Does that make sense? You know, sadly, a lot of people, men and women, hear all these dating tips and they try to be this type of person because they heard that's what impresses. My point here is that you're better off just forgetting about trying to do all those tips, you know, except mine. No, I mean, even my tips here, you know, not so much about things to think of while you're out on the date, but it's just things to bring to mind just before you go out, you know, so that you can set your intention and your energy and just be who you are. You see, the genuine conscious man is sensitive to the energy you project. And if you're not being your natural self, he'll feel that something isn't right. When you are your natural self, with all your imperfections and your quirks, he can see your uniqueness. And that is so beautiful and attractive for a spiritual man. You know, we want someone who is different, unusual, interesting, someone with depth and imperfections. And when you're just being you, it comes across as self-confident. It's the kind of confidence that you aren't afraid to be natural and authentic. And we conscious men love a woman who has that confidence to simply own who she is. So to sum up, it's all about the energy and vibration you have when you go out on a date. What really gets our interest is a woman who has a natural, cheerful, spontaneous energy about her. And, you know, the purpose of these tips is for you to take a moment before you go out, just check in with yourself. How are you feeling? What mood are you in? What are your intentions for this date? Get that all clear and settled before you step out the door. And you can even incorporate this into your favorite spiritual practice, you know, sit and meditate for a bit or whatever works for you. And the rest is just being natural, having fun and enjoying yourself. And the best thing about being your natural self is that if the guy doesn't want to see you again, that's perfect because he wasn't meant for you. And on the other hand, if he does want to see you again, it's because he likes the real you. And that's a great basis to start a relationship. So I hope you found some of this interesting, and I'll look forward to sharing with you some more insights from the mind of a spiritual man in the next video.